Assalamu alaikum,
Shalom, this is Peace Talk
the podcast about peace.
and Israel. This week we've got a very unusual and interesting guest, Oli London, who's an influencer who became famous for deciding he wanted to transition to being Korean and a woman before changing his mind and detransitioning. He's recently been posting a lot of very interesting information about Israel during the war with Hamas.
And also he returned from Israel and entered to the cities, Israeli cities, which Hamas did its massacre on it.
Absolutely. So we look forward to speaking to Oli later in the programme. But first, our discussion of what's been happening this week and some of the things that have caught our eye in the news. Firstly, there's that astounding video that Israel has released of the interrogation of a senior Hamas minister, in which he tells us a lot about Yahya Sinwar and generally how Hamas is doing in the Gaza Strip at the moment.
Exactly. It's Dr. Yusuf al-Mansi, ex-communication minister in Hamas government. He one of the most important and sensitive Hamas leaders. He said in the investigation with Shabak, with Shin Bet in Israel, that Sinwar is suffer from madness. And he, Yahya Sinwar, and also his team make all this damage, all this crisis, all this problem to the Palestinian people. And also, Joe, there is the most important point in the words of Dr. Yusuf al-Mansi. He said now in Gaza, today in Gaza, there is many people, when they pray, they go to the God and they say, please God, get rid of this madness man, Yahya Sinwar.
Yeah,
Please,
I noticed that too. So he was...
Please God, we want to get rid of all this terror.
These interrogation videos are really interesting because, of course, on the one hand, there are people who are saying, well, Israel's releasing them as part of its propaganda,
Exactly.
and that the pressure that they're putting on the people they're interrogating could cause them to say whatever they think the Israelis want to hear. However, Israel knows what it's doing in this sort of situation, and they're corroborating one with the other. The reason he's really interesting is I think they captured him within the last week, a few days ago.
I think in the 7th of December.
Okay, this man was actually in Gaza, and he can give us a real idea of the situation as it is almost real time. And the information that he gives in that video is that he says something like 90 to 95% of the Hamas fighting, let's say Hamas army, the fighters, are depleted. They've really been crushed.
Yes.
He says that they have, as you said, this idea of Yahya Sinwar, their leader in Gaza, as somebody who's utterly hated, but not just hated, completely crazed, paranoid, a madman, somebody that they are praying to get rid of, which I think is really interesting information. Again, we don't hear a lot of analysis about that.
And there is another point. Any money Hamas received from Iran and Qatar and all the EU aid to build a mosque, to build houses, to build anything which serve the citizens there, they take it to buy a weapon.
That's exactly right. He was quite detailed.
He
in
tells that. Dr. Yusuf al-Mansi, the ex-communication minister in Hamas, said they take the money to buy weapons. They don't care about the people.
And I think that's actually really important to note, is that we hear a lot of the time that Israel is saying that Hamas takes the money or takes the aid. We've seen, though, some videos from drone footage that the Israelis released this week where they showed Hamas people actually beating ordinary Gazans, stealing the food from them and continuing to beat them. And now we see this footage from the interrogations from the Israelis where they have a senior Hamas person who's saying exactly what they've said, corroborating it from Hamas, that the money that comes not just from Qatar, but the money that comes from the international community for projects for the Gazans, for the Palestinian people in Gaza, is being hijacked in order to be put towards this war effort.
Corruption.
It's not just corruption, but it means that the British, the EU, that all of the international bodies and countries putting money into Gaza as aid. I mean, Britain at the beginning of this war, Rishi Sunak stood up in Parliament and said that he was going to give millions more to the Palestinian people. The problem, of course, is that there is no route for that money to get where it's needed if Hamas in the Gaza Strip takes it all, and not just takes the money, takes the aid that the Americans are pressuring Israel to allow in every day, the fuel, the food. We've seen videos of them taking that away from the people of Gaza. So I think that a lot of the criticism that we hear day to day about Israel's actions, the humanitarian crisis, and the need to open humanitarian corridors and all of those things should be directed towards Hamas. But perhaps the international community knows Hamas aren't listening, they're not interested.
This video is a message to every UK citizen, to every taxpayer. See where your money go. Many Palestinian activists say that. And if you want to see the facts, I advise you to see video of Dr. Youssef. This is your money. I speak now to the UK citizens, which Mr. Sunak said that he will give the Palestinian aid. Okay, this is the aid, Mr. Sunak. This is the aid, and this is Dr. Youssef. I think it's a message to me as an Arab, and a message to you as a Jewish, and a message to this man as a Christian, message to all of us. See and listen and understand. And when you see someone attack Israel, think and see. This is one of them, of Hamas leaders. Say that.
And I think the other interesting thing about it as well as revealing the hijacking of international aid and international money, he also reveals that there is a secret second stream of money coming from Iran, he says, which he knows little about, that most people know little about. He says that they're combining, therefore, massive amounts of aid. I mean, the Palestinians overall get such a vast amount of aid poured into their organizations that's already quite unprecedented. But on top of that, he says that there's a second stream of money that's coming from Iran, and that all of that is being put into this formidable fighting machine that Hamas has managed to develop. We saw it on the 7th of October. We're also seeing it as the war grinds on. This is really not a sort of primitive force that Israel is having to fight that has puny little homemade weapons, as we've heard so many times in the past. This is something with fully funded Iranian and international community funded weaponry.
Your money, which you pay to the government, where does it go? To Mr. Yahya Sinwar to build a large house to take Israeli baby. You shouldn't forget Kavir Dibas. Only 9 months when they take it as hostage. Your money go to these people.
I think the other thing that also we wanted to mention as well this week is that from the perspective of all of us here, the media coverage has been highly criticised, whether it's been the BBC or the Guardian, characters like Owen Jones, the famous Guardian columnist. And I saw an interesting piece from the Press Gazette. Now, they said that in October, the biggest growing news source online in the whole world, according to SimilarWeb data, was the Times of Israel. It's gone up
Time of Israel.
604%, the number of visits that site's getting. The second highest was Al Jazeera with 147% increase. I think we can see that there is a desire among the people of the world to actually know more about this from local sources because of a failure from the sources in our own country. The second thing was the BBC, according to that, has actually seen a decrease year on year of 4%. So the BBC, the most trusted news brand in this country, if not the world, is seeing a drop in the number of visits to its sites and to its information, which again, I think should be a wake-up call. Minus 4%, it's not as big as the increase to the Times of Israel. There are still 1.2 billion people relying on the BBC, according to that data, for their information. But on the other side of that, CNN up 25%, Fox News up 17%, Daily Mail up 7%. So the BBC is seeing that decrease, while these other websites have gone up. And I think that we were talking about this before, when Hamas crossed over the border, carried out the massacre, the slaughter. All of that was undoubtedly unprecedented, and that in itself made it historic in a way that some of the other engagements in Gaza hadn't been. But I think that the reaction of world leaders, of governments, has been different as a result of that. And also, I think this data from the Press Gazette shows us that maybe it's been different also in the man on the street, the news consumer, the person who's watching the news wants to see a different side of this. Moving on now, we're going to speak to our special guest, Oli London, the influencer who's just returned from Israel, where he's been documenting for his massive following online what's been going on in Israel during the war. Oli, thanks for joining us. We're really delighted to have you. I know you've just got back from Israel, but before we get to talking about your visit there, I just wanted to recap your history, if I can, for viewers and listeners of the podcast who might not know you. And also to ask a few questions along the way I've always wanted to. Now, I've been following you actually for quite a while because I came across your accounts when you were originally trans-Korean, which for anyone listening who doesn't understand what that means, I believe, if I'm not misrepresenting you, you wanted to be Korean and underwent some surgeries and also learning the culture to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I actually transitioned. I wanted to be I felt like I wanted to be a woman as well. So I moved to Korea at the time. I started having surgeries to have more of a Korean aesthetic, and I was in a bad place, so I got very addicted to that, and it became very unhealthy. And I tried to completely transform myself because I wasn't happy from within. And the more surgeries I did, the less happy I would be. So then, I eventually underwent facial feminization surgery, and I loved Korea as a country. I loved the culture. And, I thought if so many people can identify in, 100 different pronouns, 100 different gender identities, I didn't see the harm in it at the time. And, obviously in retrospect, I do. But, at the time it was like, if everybody else can have a different identity, why can't I? And, really it was just trying to find validation, trying to be happy, trying to change myself, and actually made me very unhappy.
I do want to ask, if you don't mind, a slightly cheeky question, because when I saw you starting out on that route, I saw a guy who seemed very eloquent and intelligent falling into a trap that seemed very woke in the worst possible meaning of the word and foolish. And I did wonder, I remember saying it's got to be satire, even though he's going a long way to do it and having the surgeries. Was there any part of you that kind of had doubts and this was almost like a sort of performance art?
It wasn't performance art, but basically I really fell deeper and deeper. Each time I would do a surgery, each time I'd change myself, I would just fall deeper and deeper into it and became very disillusioned with the world. And, it wasn't healthy at all. And look, there was a part which was about validation, on TikTok, for instance. The more changes you do to yourself, the more you change, you get validation, you get more comments about you look amazing, you look beautiful, encouragement and stuff. So there was that which I was lacking, in my childhood and stuff. So that definitely played a big part in it. Mm-hmm.
So Oli, since then, you've done really a 180 on it and woken up to being so woke. And as part of that, I understand that you have also found some religious direction in your life, in Christianity. Did you have any Jewish heritage originally?
No Jewish heritage at all. I mean, when I was a kid, I went to a Church of England school, so I did go to church within the school. But as a teenager, I became atheist, and my father was like kind of drilling it into me to be atheist, and there's no such thing as God and stuff. So I kind of lost touch with that. It was only when I kind of went through these changes, and I was pretty woke back then, and believing all of this stuff myself, and I was very lost. I was like a lost sheep, so I needed something to ground me and something to give me direction in life. So I just thought, let me try something new, because I remembered as a kid, great fond memories going to church with my school, and I started going there just for some kind of solace and peace of mind, and it became really something very helpful, and it helped me turn my life around. And also that's the reason why now I'm like an activist, because it made me realize, everything Jesus did was to help other people. So I want to try and help give back to people.
The reason I asked about the Jewish thing, of course, is because of the main focus of what we wanted to talk to you about, which is Israel. Obviously, you've become, in some ways, an activist, a talking head. I'm not sure the best words to describe it. And as part of that, you seem to have also discovered a passion and interest in what's going on in Israel. And I know that you've actually just come back from a visit to Israel where you had some extraordinary experiences. So that's why I was asking about the Jewish thing. It's quite unusual for many Jews to see such strong and reasonable allies in people who have no connection necessarily to Israel. So tell us a bit about that trip that you've just been on.
Well, firstly, I find it very sad that Jewish people have to feel like that. They have to feel oftentimes they're on their own. And, I was just at a Hanukkah event last night, and they all said that, they all thought I was Jewish because I'm helping them. And I was like, no, I just feel like I have a sense of duty to speak up. I have a large platform. And I find that really sad that, unfortunately, throughout history, Jewish people have been persecuted so much. They always feel that they're on alone. And everybody should be speaking up. So, they need a strong voice right now. And, the reason I'm speaking up is because I saw those October 7th videos and I was so horrified. And then I was equally horrified by the response of the world. So I thought, I need to give these people a voice. And so I've just been to Israel with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Canadian Consul General. And, I went to various parts. I went to the north to see the situation on the Lebanese border, because that's something that's very underreported. I met some evacuees, and people don't realize there's 300,000 people internally displaced right now. So, I'm trying to bring attention to stories that people might not be aware of. Also visited Kfar Aza, and for me, it was important because what I've seen on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, is a lot of people in denial, a lot of people celebrating it, a lot of people, trying to downplay what happened that day. And, which I think is outrageous. And I think, Jewish people need people speaking up for them, because they shouldn't have to be alone after going through this atrocity.
By the way, it's not a tragedy to only the Jewish people, because you can find many Arabs also. Hamas killed there in Israel in this crazy massacre. Okay, but I wanted to discuss you about the video which you put it in your ex about in the safe room. And you see that you can smell the human flesh, and there is many tragedy about it. One of the journalists which go into the safe room, can you describe the bloody situation, the bloody pictures there?
Well, firstly, a lot of people aren't aware about these safe rooms. So they're actually primarily for rocket attacks. So they don't actually have locks on the outside doors. They actually have levers that can be opened. And that's normally because, everyone in Israel obviously knows, if there's a rocket attack, emergency services need to get in, the IDF need to get in to rescue the people inside. There's a lever to pull. So the horrific thing was these weren't designed for terrorists coming in the house. So all of these people, they went into these safe rooms, and a tactic of Hamas, they would throw gas canisters inside to burn the house down, burn the family out. So you would have scenes of the family running outside, being burned alive before they get shot at or captured, and then horrific things done to them. And it was just a horror scene. I went in around a dozen of these houses in Kfar Aza where 62 people died, and there's nothing left in these houses. It's just ash. The windows are smashed in. The ceilings have caved in, and it really shows you the lengths of depravity these terrorists went to do this. And I was just imagining the horror those families went through in those last moments in that. And I thought it's very important to show the world that, because again, so many people in denial, so many people say it's not real, it didn't happen. And you even have the Pink Floyd singer Roger Waters trying to downplay what happened that day, saying, oh, maybe a few civilians died, So I think it was important to educate. As horrific as it was seeing it firsthand, I thought, what, people need to see the truth.
Okay, Oli, also I hear you that in the film, you talk to the British audience, the audience in UK, and you see that every Saturday what happens at demonstration, and you see, put yourself in the shoes of the people that lived in Gaza. Imagine what happened to them. So you see that there is some person which want us to ignore this tragedy.
A lot of people do ignore it. I was trying to address influencers, social media users that either ignore it or celebrate it, because what we saw after October 7th, look, there's been protests non-stop in London, as we know, but there was no acknowledgement of these victims of October 7th. The next day, people were on the streets, free Palestine, and that was before Israel even responded. So, there was no mourning for these people. There was no chance for these people to mourn these victims or to speak up for the hostages. It was suddenly, all of these activists, and a lot of them are hateful and inciting violence. They're chanting from the river to the sea, and that has been every weekend in London right now. And Jewish people do not feel safe going into central London, and I think it's really wrong. So I was trying to appeal to these people that, look, of course, the loss of any civilian life is very sad and very tragic. Unfortunately, in war that happens. Same in Ukraine. A lot of civilians have died in Ukraine, in Yemen, in Syria, but we don't see any protests about that. So it clearly shows you that this is not about, it's not about free Palestine. It's about, unfortunately, these people are very anti-Semitic. They're very hateful to Israel. And it just shows you, these people don't actually even know what they're protesting about, because they're not protesting about the, millions of people displaced in Yemen. They're not protesting about the genocide in Armenia with Azerbaijan, in Nagorno-Karabakh. Nobody's speaking about that. So it just highlights this kind of hypocrisy and this sad attack on Jewish people.
And Oli, listen, you get a lot of hate online as well. I mean, everybody does, but you put yourself out there. And I think that you've been on the forefront of some really controversial issues of our time. And so I'm curious how you found the response to this. How does it compare, for example, to the response you've got from being trans in the first place to being effectively a detransitioner and anti-trans in the sense of the harm that it's doing to the younger generation? How is it compared to that? Is it different sort of response? Is it more vicious? And also, in this world where people are attacking each other online, do you think you are successfully changing minds in doing it? Or is it really a fight that just seems to go on and on online?
I'm always very outspoken. I believe in just speaking, what I believe is the truth and trying to educate people on certain issues. And, when I was trans, you had all these nice comments, people praising you. Oh, you look amazing, you're beautiful. And that's reinforcing that behavior. Because, when you've struggled with your appearance, your identity, your whole life, and suddenly people reinforce that, it's kind of encourages that behavior. So yeah, as soon as I detransitioned, obviously, you've got a lot of backlash because people don't like talking about things like that. And there are thousands of people that do detransition, and, people that have had surgeries, and some have had hormones and puberty blockers, and everybody should have a voice to speak about that. So, I get all these trolls, all these haters, but in the last month, it's been really, really severe. I mean, unfortunately, every person that posts about this, whether they're Jewish or Israeli or not, is getting a lot of very nasty messages, and it shouldn't be like that. I had, for instance, some Indonesian pro-Palestinian accounts targeting me nonstop the last week, and they did 1,000 one-star reviews on my book the other day, just in one day and stuff. And it's like, I just find these people very sad. I find them very uneducated, and for me, I don't take it personally because I don't read these messages, but of course you do see one or two. And there's also a lot of bots. I noticed that since the Israel-Palestine war started, I notice on not just mine, but many, many accounts, you see, as soon as you post, automatically you have 10 comments, automatically. And then these go up and up and up. And it's all like free Palestine, pro-Palestine stuff. And they're clearly bots. My question is, who is behind this? Is it Iran? Is it Russia? And I did ask these questions in Israel, and I know Russia is behind a lot of disinformation online. So there's a lot of hate on social media, but for me in my head, I think half these people aren't real, and the ones that are real are just very uneducated, misinformed, and they're just keyboard warriors. So for me, I can take it, but for somebody that's Jewish that's being subjected to this hate, it's very difficult.
Only when I see always your tweets, your word in X, you love to go enter the new challenges. So today in the morning, you put a tweet about why Jordan wasn't to talk in a single Gazan refugee. I don't want to talk to you about that, but there is many Arab know who is Oli London. You don't think to translate your tweets to Arabic, for example, to your audience. I don't want to talk about your political point of view, but your audience in the Arab, because there is a huge wave to ignore Israel and to hate Israel in the Middle East, and you have audience in the Middle East also.
Well, I posted that tweet because firstly, nobody is coming up with solutions to fix this problem. And not a single Arab country is taking in Palestinian refugees. Egypt, refused to open the Rafah crossing. They only opened it very briefly for foreign nationals to flee Gaza and some of the injured to treat them before sending them back. So, no, and Jordan has a huge Palestinian population. Queen Rania herself is of Palestinian origin. And, while they have taken many Palestinian refugees before, more than half of the country is Palestinian. So, if there's no solution right now that's going to help, because, they've tried so many times for Palestine to accept a two-state solution, accept all of these different things. Every time they reject, or every time Hamas breaks that ceasefire. So unfortunately, as long as you have Hamas, there's absolutely no solution. And unfortunately, again, many of these people from a very young age are taught to hate. They're taught to celebrate the killing of Jews. And unfortunately, a lot of countries in the Middle East are claiming to stand by the Palestinian people. You have Turkey. Erdogan's been very strong, but yet, firstly, they won't take the refugees. And secondly, if you're talking about these people virtue signaling, we stand with our Palestinian brothers. Well, if that's the case, take the refugees. And, in Turkey, what they're doing in Kurdistan, it's like, it's double standards. They try to criticize other countries. Saudi Arabia criticizing Israel, yet Saudi Arabia is bombing civilians in Yemen. So, these countries are completely hypocritical. But I think, there has to be some solution to get these refugees out. No countries will take them right now. And Jordan has the largest Palestinian population. Why not take them in?
Oli, you seem incredibly well informed on this topic, and I think on others as well, which is, I think, really interesting in your position as well, because you're basically, let's say, an influencer, for whatever that word means these days, and you have a huge audience who react both in massive support and massive contradiction of what you say. So I'm curious, as much for other people to be able to learn, not just from you, but from how you learn. Where are you getting your information? How do you access so much of this? When in the UK, actually looking at much of the mainstream media, there's a very one-sided, or at least, let's say, limited filter of news coming out of the war that Israel is engaged in at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. You can't rely on the mainstream media like BBC, Sky News, because they're super biased and, inaccurate half the time. So, for me, when I post something, I always make sure I have multiple sources. I research it to make sure it's clear. I get information from on the ground directly. And Telegram is very good for getting, breaking news and things happening. I get, obviously, different organizations, Israeli organizations, Jewish organizations, Christian organizations, Israeli government officials. I get the kind of latest breaking news, so I can share that, with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and stuff. But I get it from different sources because I like to have an open mind. I like to, look at something that may be left wing, something that may be right wing, and try to see what they're saying to try and get the real truth, because it is hard to get the truth sometimes, because, even something that is considered credible, like the New York Times, of course, they have posted, when the hospital in Gaza was hit by a Islamic Jihad rocket, they automatically said 500 Palestinians died from an Israeli airstrike, and we knew that was false. So you can't trust some of these mainstream media outlets. So, for me, I make sure to look at various different news outlets. Obviously, you have the Associated Press, you have Reuters, which are the ones that often break the breaking news. And of course, I speak with IDF sources, I speak with Israeli government sources, Jewish organizations, anti-Semitism organizations, and to get my information from various sources. But I try to get the most up-to-date news before the news actually breaks it.
We were talking earlier in the podcast about the video that's just been released by the Israelis of a senior Hamas communications guy who's been talking about Yahya Sinwar. Those sorts of videos as well seem to be very informative, but I'm not sure we're seeing enough of them in the British media.
Well, yeah, firstly, you hit the nail on the head, like the British media, American media as well. A lot of them just want to show only what's going on in Gaza, and it's not always accurate. You see this footage, and, Hamas uses crisis actors as well. And, the statistics, Palestinian Health Authority is Hamas. All of the statistics that they're getting are from Hamas. So it's like these news outlets are taking that information from a terrorist organization that raped, killed 1,200 people. So why would anyone take that as fact? And I think another issue you have is even when the IDF forces release, for instance, we had the other day the images of the Hamas terrorists that were captured, they were in their underwear. That is then used as propaganda from the other side. And I think more needs to be done to counter that narrative, because suddenly those pictures go viral. Look how badly the IDF are treating these people. But if you actually look at the context, these people have to be stripped because they carry suicide vests, they carry explosives, they carry weapons. So that is standard practice. And these people are terrorists. These are the same people that went into they went into Offa Gaza, into Israel on that day and killed children. They killed women. They brutally did that. So no, the fact that the narrative on X, on other platforms is, oh, this is terrible, this is a war crime and stuff, when they're not even looking at the context. And I think the media has a responsibility to report the truth, because when we saw that hospital rocket strike, which was again Islamic Jihad, regardless of the media outlets apologizing, BBC issued a retraction, New York Times, the damage is done. So that's very damaging. So the media need to get it right. They need to report the truth, and they do need to do something to combat all of this pro-Palestinian propaganda, because, again, with the hostage videos, you see a lot of sympathy. Oh, look how nicely Hamas treated them. They're shaking their hands, they're waving. But, these people are having their voices amplified by the media, and you have left-wing media outlets amplifying this and questioning, oh, maybe Hamas aren't that bad. And you're thinking these people are barbarians after what they did. These people kidnapped these people. They killed their families, and yet they are trying to evoke sympathy. So I think the media has an absolute duty to report that. And sadly, they do have a bias, and all of the journalists in Gaza themselves are getting their information from Hamas. So, that they shouldn't be taking the word of a terrorist organization.
Also, Oli, I wanted to ask you, in your point of view, I see Owen Jones, for example, is talk about there is no rape in one of the TV channels. And the presenter didn't only talk to him about these facts. Even the presenter here.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, they should have pushback if somebody is making a claim like that and trying to deny events. The presenter's job is to have pushback and present impartiality and present the facts as well. So Owen Jones has always had a history of being a complete attention seeker, and he'll just say anything to upset people. He's appalling with women's rights. He's, pushing all the kids to be transitioned, and he just has very divisive and appalling views. I mean, the fact he watched the videos, the 45-minute video of the Hamas that they filmed themselves, and Hamas filmed these videos on their GoPro cameras, and yet he still says, oh, there's no evidence this happened. I mean, the blatant gaslighting and denial of what happened to these women, not only Owen Jones, other journalists and the United Nations took them 54 days to condemn that. It's just truly, truly appalling. But, people like Owen Jones, they're simply divisive figures. He's, a very hateful person, and, he has no sympathy he doesn't care about women.
I'm interested, because you mentioned there that, a lot of Owen Jones's views are pro-trans in the broader sense of that, and pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel in the sense that we know. You, of all people, maybe recognize that there seem to be groups of opinions that fall together on the left or right. As somebody that was influenced by the social media pressure on how you look and to become different and to change your appearance and even to change your ethnicity and gender in your mind, why do you think that goes in line with, say, pro-Palestinian and specifically anti-Israel actions and thoughts? Why are some of these things left-wing and right-wing? Why is Israel seen by many as a right-wing thing? Why is GB News a place that will talk about it differently from The Guardian and the BBC? What's with this left-right divide, in your opinion?
Well, I used to be very left-wing, very liberal-leaning and super woke, obviously, when I had my transition and stuff. So, I generally believed all the things, all these climate things. I thought, oh, it's all good, all these Greta Thunberg people. Now I'm like the complete opposite, because I've educated myself, I've woken up. But, it's very hard when you're stuck in one box, you believe a certain thing. It's very hard to see the other side. So that's why it's important to educate people. But, in terms of the left-wing, we see Queers for Palestine, we see trans activists, non-binary supporting Palestine, supporting Hamas, which is the complete ridiculousness. because these people wouldn't last a second in Gaza. And it just shows you the mentality of these people. It's pure brainwashing. It's pure indoctrination. They are unable to even see the truth. And a lot of it is as well, a lot of these people, these trans activists, the non-binary, they believe themselves to be victims. They are full-time victims. They all have that victim mentality. And they also think that Palestine is an oppressed minority, just like Black Lives Matter, that particular movement. The same people attach themselves to that movement. And we saw, obviously, what happened with that, all the cities being burnt down, all of the violence and stuff. So these people like to attach themselves to what they consider an oppressed minority because they feel that they themselves are an oppressed minority, even though they're not. So it's really, unfortunately, a lot of these people are brainwashed at the universities, on TikTok and stuff, and they're unable to think outside the box. They don't even know what they're talking about. If you ask them the history of Israel, no idea. If you ask them the history of, Palestine breaking all of these agreements, no idea. So these people are uneducated. They simply are going along with a trend. It's also an anti-capitalism movement because you obviously have the conspiracy theory that is the Jewish people control the world, and you have all of these anti-Semitic, the octopus, which was from Nazi Germany, which Greta Thunberg used in the picture and she later deleted. So you have this conspiracy that, Jewish people control the world. So these activists think that they're fighting against that. They think they're fighting against capitalism. They think they're fighting against the elites. But it's totally not the case. They've completely got it wrong. And actually, the real victims are the people from October 7th, the Israelis that have rockets fired at their houses every single day, that have to live with this. And they have tried so many years to live in peace. And Israel doesn't suddenly just bomb Gaza. They are doing that in self-defense. And it's always the case. They only respond if they have to. And, people need to accept the reality on the ground. It's, and open their eyes.
Oli, I want you to tell your audience about the tragedy and the suffering to the hostage in this middle and explain to us what does that mean and who gave it to you and what is your message to the hostage and the family hostage in Israel?
Well, I actually met the brother of Ilya, who was kidnapped. Ilya Toledo, he was kidnapped from the Nova Festival. I actually met his brother, Daniel. I had a very good conversation with him. And, he was telling me his brother was a very happy guy. He was always smiling. So he knows, even though he's going through a dark time, he will still have some spirit. But the problem is these hostages that are kept under the tunnels, they are told every day by Hamas, nobody is coming for you. Nobody cares about you. You're lost and stuff. It's psychological warfare. So, they're telling these young people every day, nobody cares about you. Israel is going to airstrike you. And, they made the claim the other week that Kufa Bibas, Ariel Bibas and Shiri Bibas were killed in an airstrike. IDF has not confirmed any of that. And, a lot of that is psychological warfare. And unfortunately, these hostages are in horrific conditions. We saw the case of a young girl who was operated on by a vet, an animal doctor. We see some of them have injuries. We see, one of the elderly ladies, 85 years old, she was released. She was very ill and there was no treatment for that. So, it's a really difficult situation. The statistics I got the other day, there was still 137 hostages in captivity. However, in the last few days, Hamas have announced some of them have died. There was a video and images of a guy that was covered in blood. I didn't share that. I just shared a picture of the guy's face before, but there's a lot of suffering right now. And the women, they're not releasing the women. And a lot of people, Israeli people, have told me that there's a reason they're not releasing the women. They don't want them to share their stories with the world because their propaganda has been affected when you see these hostage handovers with the Red Cross smiling and stuff. And people believe that. People think they were treated well. And they don't want to release these women because what they've done to them, as we saw on October 7th, the 19-year-old girl that was taken into the Jeep with the grey tracksuit and the blood on, we know what happened to these women, but they don't want them to speak out.
Yeah, it is horrible. And it's an amazing thing you're doing in keeping the message out there, because I think that the social media world in particular is one where a lot of this is being fought outside Israel, especially in the minds and the hearts and minds of the younger generation who are struggling to get the right information. And I don't think we should blame anyone for anything. The whole point in our podcast and this discussion is that we want to open things up for different points of view, for people from different backgrounds, to really figure out what they think based on facts and reality. And I think you're doing a great job in trying to put that out to some of the people that follow you there.
Thank you. And by the way, you show the Israeli culture. You eat hummus and falafel in Israel?
I eat so much food. It's the best food I've ever had. It was so fresh. I went to a
Shakshuka also.
Huh?
Shakshuka.
Shakshuka. Which one is that? Which dish is that?
It's a very delicious Israeli. You should eat it in the next trip.
Okay, I didn't try that one. Yeah, I tried a lot, but yeah.
Hopefully your next trip will be in happier times, and maybe we could see you there and have a shakshuka.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be going back soon, so definitely, yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oli.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. Let's hope that as we keep going with this podcast series, more talk brings more peace.